Hello and welcome to the Glazier Nation Podcast. This episode I'm joined by Daniel Nauman. Daniel leads the facade group at Gensler, and he joined me on the podcast on behalf of Gensler to accept the 2023 Glazier Nation Architect of the Year Award. Daniel and I had a great conversation. We talked about the life of Art Gensler, the misconception contractors may have about architects, and I got a good look from the architect's viewpoint of emerging trends in facade technology and design. As always, the Glazier Nation Podcast is brought to you by Glazier Nation. Check out glaziernation.com for all their offerings. And Glazier Nation will be at Glass Build this year. If you want to attend, check out glassbuildamerica.com. I had a great conversation with Daniel. Congratulations to Gensler. I hope y'all enjoy the podcast. And fire in the sky, huh?
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, smoke. Was really hazy, and our neighbors across the street are getting their driveway redone.
Okay.
And so my wife didn't really know, like in the morning, she's like, "Oh yeah, there's a little bit of debris on the car and stuff," but I thought that was the neighbors. And then, got a phone call from the school. She does the run club for my daughters after school, and they're like, "Oh, run club is canceled. Like we can't run in the ash today." So they're like, "Oh."
And what is it from? Is it from forest fires?
Yeah, up in Canada, there's apparently something burning down, forest fires. So
I must be ignorant. I haven't heard about this, but
it's a long way from you.
It is for sure. But I suppose if I probably turned on a mainstream news channel, I'd probably hear about it. Hey, Daniel, first let's real quick, who are you? And then, you and I can both weigh in on how we connected here.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Daniel Nauman. I'm an architect with Gensler in the Boston office. I lead our facade group in the office, and been here 12 plus years now.
Did facades, was that from the beginning, or did that kind of mold into you're the facades guy?
Yeah, it's been a long journey, and I don't know how many stories you want here, but actually I worked on a project in Pittsburgh, the PNC Tower. It's a breathable double skin wall, the first 2+ years in Gensler, and it was amazing, right? Project of a lifetime. And I finished that project, and I said, "Oh, this is what I want to do. I want to do facades." Like, it totally just lit me on fire. And at the time, we didn't have a lot of these big ground-up base building things. And so, my principal was kind of like, "Well, I'm not sure this is going to be a good fit then. Like, you might want to leave," right? This is my first review in. He told me I might want to leave. I was like, "All right, well, Gensler's got good benefits, so I'm going to stick around for 5 years in total, and then we can talk. So let's touch base in 3 years and see if this thing's worked out or not." But it has, yeah. It's grown, the office, the work has grown exponentially. And I've been fortunate that, I kind of came in on the ground floor and, got some training and some mentorship from some great people across the firm. And now I've been able to grow with the office and with the firm into this work.
So what was it about facades that got you going?
I think for me, it's the way that it touches all things, right? So it's the performance, right? It's your first line of defense. It's the look. It's the thing everybody sees from the outside. So I wonder why more people aren't into it, right? Sometimes people just be like, "Oh yeah, I'm, into technical or whatever." And I'm like, elevator cores? Like, that's not fun, right? Like, it's not. So, something for everybody, but yeah, it's just this, this intersection of design and technical and performance all coming together. That's just where it's all happening.
Definitely part of this social media podcast, that something that's kind of evolved is kind of bringing light to this industry. And we're, obviously we're working with architects. I'm talking with you here, but, young people that get into trades too. It's kind of overlooked. Like if you ask people, they kind of know electrician, maybe steel, carpentry. No one really knows glazer. But you're right. It's the part that everybody sees. It's the sexy part of the building. It's no one in the glazing industry wanted to work with toilet partitions. So, but why we have you on the show is to present Gensler with the 2023 Glazier Nation Architect of the Year Award. You are here as the recipient. So congratulations to you and Gensler. We felt that Gensler projects were instrumental to the glass and glazing industry. Gensler works a lot with, you mentioned the PNC Tower, glass intensive projects, pushing innovation with the glazing systems as well. And then we also, we wanted to recognize Art Gensler for building, such a strong and unique company. And I was hoping you could kind of speak to either both of those, or maybe just about Art, whatever you'd like.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, thank you. And on behalf of Gensler, it's an honor. And, for sure, Art was a special guy, right? I mean, Art was a better guy than he was an architect. And, he really set this company up by doing the right things the right way. And I think that just trickled down, right? So it's all about client service. It's all about treating, employees and colleagues the right way. And that just creates an environment to do great work, right? So it makes it a place you want to be. And, it's people talk about servant leadership. That was Art through and through. And so, when he had passed, stories and stories would come out of everywhere about, people who got handwritten letters, just from Art saying thank you for the great work. And, I can tell you he did a tour through where not too long after the Shanghai Tower went up, he was touring the different offices and was just like thanking everybody, saying like, I'm blown away by the work you guys are doing, like under the name of Gensler. And I would have never imagined this. And it was, he was so humble and just so captivating. And after that lunch, right, they bought everybody pizza, and I'm sitting in the second row, and he's telling us all these stories. And as we get up to walk away, someone in the first row dropped a napkin, and, I kind of saw it, and, I'm stuck in the second row. It's like, whatever. They didn't notice they dropped the napkin, so they keep walking. And Art, and he is old at this time, he bends down and he picks up the trash and throws it away. Doesn't say a thing, right? And it's like, that is, 100 different ways. That's what he would do. He just does the right thing. Nothing's below him. And, when you've got somebody like that setting the culture of your organization, it's really what set us up to be, I believe still the largest design firm in the world.
Yeah, that's awesome. You find with a lot of these successful companies that there's usually some sort of leadership like that, right?
Absolutely.
So again, congratulations, Architect of the Year from Glazier Nation. That was quite a discussion of who we should pick, and it went to Gensler.
That's awesome. Thanks.
With architects, what do you think the biggest misconception from the contractor side is?
I think sometimes they assume we all wear black capes and we're not willing to compromise, and they think we know it all, right? But I think that we don't. That we're pretty open about, like, we want to bring what we bring to the table. We want to bring the design intent, and we want to find ways to achieve it together. And I think sometimes, and maybe some do, but they just, come in with this attitude. And I think that gets portrayed more globally than it probably should.
I think that's fair. I don't think it's fair to generalize it, but I think you're right. I think that is a common misconception, not with every contractor, not with every subcontractor, but it's definitely something that's out there. How do you think, let's say, specifically with glazing contractors, since we're Glazier Nation here, how can subcontractors help with that? What can they do to address that?
Yeah, I think, I think it's teaching us, right? And it's got to be, us wanting to learn and them wanting to teach, right? Because I've been doing facades now for 12 plus years, and I still feel like I'm scratching the surface, right? So when we're working with subs and, we get in their factories and shops and they're doing these installations, it's like they know, their product in and out, and, the way it's supposed to work, the way it's been designed, the way it's going to get installed, all the things that, we can't possibly think about when we're drawing it, right? It's kind of like, you're shaping it, you're thinking about some performance, but, I think the more we can understand about the system itself, how it works, and the installation, I think we can come to, to better joint conclusions and designs. And I think, we, as far as I can tell, we just want to be, we want to be brought along, right? Like we don't want to be left in the dark and kind of, not understand what's going on or why these changes need to happen, but want to learn from them so that, we can do, this project really well and then learn from it for the next one so we can, be ahead of the game next time this comes around.
I think something important that you said in there is that you want to know why. So, maybe there's an example where a subcontractor has received their shop drawings back and they kind of, this architect doesn't know what they're talking about. This architect won't do this. And it's not really that. It's more of explain why to me, right?
For sure. And I think, again, and every time we learn why, it just puts another tool in the tool belt for next time, right? I mean, one of the things recently we're working on, something that seems trivial, like a reveal in a snap cap, right, on a system. And it was a custom reveal, and our design team was really wanting like a 1/4 inch wide by a 1/2 inch deep, this like just deep shadow line. And the sub came back and said, oh, well, we can't. And then they said, well, the reason why is, it's the painting process and they need a certain width to get the depth and to get the right coverage. And so I was like, okay, that we get it, right? So, all right, let's thin it up and let's make it work. But to start to learn those constraints, means we can design within them.
Absolutely. Collaboration. And anytime I run into someone disgruntled on the contractor or subcontractor side, I tend to remind them that the architect is responsible for, what are we up to now? 44 sections, spec sections. I forget the exact number. I should know that, but they're responsible for all of that. And we're kind of just responsible for this very specific niche. So we need to work together, collaborate. I think that's just the key. What on your side, what goes in to the architect's thought process when you're selecting a glazing system?
Yeah, I think it starts really big picture, right? And, it starts with the overall design intent and what, what's trying to be achieved, what kind of performance, right? So certainly with glazing systems, now we're talking about, very performative low E coatings. Up here in the Northeast, triple glazing is a must. The new stretch coats coming out, there's no way around it. So it really starts with the performance. And then, the aesthetic that you're going for, whether you want something reflective or transparent or, a neutral or a gray or a blue. And it's trying to, I'd say in the glazing selection process, marry the performance and the aesthetic together that often are fighting each other, right? So, I want this really high performing thing, but I also want it to be super transparent, right? You want like Apple Store look with, the performance of a really reflective, coating. And so, I think it's a balance of that, right? And I think that's where, again, we want to lean into the subs and the, kind of the glass manufacturers of like, help us understand, where, this series of coating fits within performance or how this system goes together, right? I mean, again, I can remember going back to PNC, the first time I'd even heard people talk about what surface a coating goes on and where a frit can go and who can put a frit where. And I'm looking at these guys like, how would you know this stuff, right? Like there is no way coming, I had 6 years of experience at another firm and I came into Gensler and I was like, I thought I knew a little bit of what was going on and I realized I knew nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And so I feel like each and every time, somebody kind of newly gets introduced to this world or we get into a design assist conversation, everything is new, right? So it's you're learning the language, you're learning what a chicken head is, right? So it's like there's all this lingo and jargon that you're trying to pick up and understand.
Yeah.
And not look too stupid when you're asking all these questions, right?
Sure. Yeah. I get that. There's a lot of technical knowledge that a lot of it is just tribal. I mean, my dad owned a glass shop, so I grew up with it and I kind of just know it. So someone stepping into it, that doesn't have that, there's a lot going on there. You mentioned one thing in there. Now it's my turn to sound ignorant. I'm a Florida guy now. Stretch code.
Yeah. So our up here, the IECC 2021 is starting to go into effect, and we've got local stretch codes that are going above and beyond that. And so, the new codes are creating super, super stringent U values for a glazing system to meet. And it's challenging, right? I mean, this is one of, I think, the upcoming challenges for the industry is, the codes are going kind of anti-glass, right? Like, we had a consultant recently tell us, the code writers won't say this, but they're saying this under the table that they're trying to get rid of all glass buildings, right? Like they're bad for the environment, and they're overdone, and just they want the end of it. And so I think the systems need to get more efficient, and we're gonna have to pivot as a little bit of as an industry and figure out how to work with these new requirements that ultimately are good, right? Without updated codes and keeping us moving in the right direction. Oftentimes left to our own devices, we won't always do that.
Yeah. You made a great point in there. So I had a previous employer / mentor as a podcast guest once, and I used to ask pretty similar questions, and one of them was kind of, what is the biggest challenge to the glazing industry? And I would say most people would say like finding labor, like that was usually number one. Number two was probably like cash flow, managing cash flow. And then the guy I'm talking about, Sean Moore, he said, keeping glass on the building is the biggest challenge. And, that kind of goes hand in hand with what you just said, is that, it's the least performing product that we put on the facade, hands down. But we all like it because it looks beautiful and it gives us natural light. And we've got studies that prove that we're happier and higher performing with natural light. So, it's a big challenge for sure. What other emerging trends do you see, as far as facade goes in design?
Yeah, I hope and I think we're seeing a strive for low embodied carbon, right? And I don't know, you can maybe tell me where the glazing industry is at with that, but from what we're seeing, it's a challenge, right? Especially when you're looking at, potentially customized unitized curtain wall, and glass coming from one place and extrusions from another, and being fabricated somewhere else and shipped, to the job site. And it's really hard to get that number quantified. But it's becoming more and more imperative that we start to limit, the amount of embodied carbon we use. And, on the design side for us, that's like less gingerbread, right? Like, don't throw stuff on a facade that doesn't need to be there. If it's not performing, it's not serving a function or multiple functions, it probably is a waste of carbon. And I think, that's something that as an industry, we're going to really need to hone in on and figure out how do we actually track that in a meaningful way that's going to be accurate. And right now, I don't know that there's any numbers out there you can trust.
So that'd be something that the manufacturers could help with transparent information, yeah?
Absolutely.
And that's another strike against glass on the facade, right?
Yeah, I think so, but it's not, I'd say in comparison to other materials, right? Even if you're you're using a terracotta or a aluminum, composite panel, like all these materials take embodied carbon to create, and glass and aluminum definitely have their fair share. But it's, I think it's about balancing it, right? And it's really finding, if we can at least start to talk about it, quantify it, understand it, right? Right now, I couldn't even tell you what like a number per square foot of facade should be, right? We're researching this and we're trying to figure out what that looks like, but it's not a number like the miles per gallon of your car is, right? Yeah. So if we could, as an industry, begin to talk about this in a way where we can all start to understand it and go, oh, well, this is kind of the oversized SUV of a glazing system versus the Tesla, right? Like, even if we could start to understand the differences in a way that we now all know cars and miles per gallon, and how, one's good, one's bad, one's electric or hybrid, right? So advances have come, and they're mainstream. Most people drive cars, so a little bit easier to understand. But at least within the industry, right? This doesn't need to be something that like my parents understand, but Those of us within the facade world and architecture world should be able to talk about it with a level playing field and an understanding of, where's the carbon.
What would be something that would differentiate between the Tesla and the SUV of a glazing system? Is it the area transported? Is it the material used? Is it kind of the energy used in extruding it or tempering it? Is it all of that?
Yeah, I think all of that put together, right?
Okay.
And so it's really, I think if you want to start with, the glass only, right? It's like, where's the sand coming from and where's it being melted down and, where's that getting shipped to? So it's all the energy combined from the extraction and the manufacturing and the transport and, tempering it, right? You're heating it up and you've got the, your big oven. And so there's just a lot of energy that I think in the past has been overlooked or unaccounted for. And we're now starting to realize that, oh, we need to watch that, right? And even if you can get a little bit of energy savings over the life of the building, it might be better off right now to save that upfront carbon if you could spend less of it now. There's a balance and, you'd like to do both, right? Do something less, carbon intensive now that also performs, over the life of the building. But we're kind of at a tipping point where we can't ignore it anymore. We've got to figure this out.
Yeah. I mean, I would say from the subcontractor and manufacturing side, it's not something that's on a lot of people's radar, but that's why we have these conversations. So people can start talking about it, right? And then I assume code follows that. But so I mentioned off the air something about AI, and you said you weren't really into that, but I'm curious, where are designers, where are architects, what's new in technology for facade design?
Yeah, I think we're looking everywhere. Although I don't know that we've started to try to design with ChatGPT yet. Again, it does freak me out, to be honest. I think we've definitely got teams in every corner looking at Grasshopper and kind of scripting and how can we optimize. I think right now it's about sorry to interrupt. What is Grasshopper? Yeah. So a lot of our designs are modeled in a software called Rhino, which I assume you're familiar with. So Grasshopper is a scripting plugin that allows you to basically write code to create that geometry.
Okay.
Or to simplify a geometry. So we've got a project right now with a semi-complex geometry, and you're able to break down, or you could set your mullion spacing along a radius to be perfect by writing this script.
Okay.
And it also can update and give you areas. So it's kind of the coding way to create facade geometry and design. So I think that is something that is happening, and we're looking into. And what can come with that is there's a bunch of other insect plugins, Ladybug and Honeybee, and these other things that all come together. No joke, those are the names.
Is there a reason that they're all named after bugs?
That I don't know, but they are. And those do performance, right? So they can take weather data and give you kind of early performance models and start to understand if you have this design versus that design, it's gonna perform better. So I think, to me, that's probably the most useful right now that I see, but there are definitely corners of people getting into, VR was really big for a while, and, kind of immersive experiences. Like, I think that stuff's coming, but maybe not as quickly as everybody thought, right? Like Oculus came out and everybody freaked out. We bought a bunch of them, and then I don't think, I haven't seen anyone wearing a pair of those in a long time.
I just saw the new Apple goggles today. I mean, not physically. I saw a video. Pretty wild. I don't know if you've seen them.
I have not seen it yet. I just saw the clip.
It's instead of like the Oculus, which would be VR. This is like AR.
Okay. So you see through, and
yes, but you see a screen that nobody else can see. Pretty wild. And you swipe with your eyes, and you type with your voice. That coding stuff's super interesting though, because you made kind of a joke that you're not looking at ChatGPT, but I mean, that's kind of the evolution of that path. Is the next thing is, hey, ChatGPT, I want you to design me a building that does this, this, and this, and kind of looks like this, this, and this. And you would work from there. It's not going to do everything, but you can kind of see how that would start.
Yeah, I can see that. I think I'll say what worries me, and actually, I was talking to Doug Gensler. He's left Gensler. He's now a client of ours.
Okay.
He was in the other day, and we were talking about this, and something he said was, the worry there is, we are supposed to be innovators, designers. Every building is unique, right? We've never done two buildings the same. And what the current AI technology doing is mining what's out there, and it can give you the right answer, right? If you've got a question, it can find the answer and it can compile it in a great way or hilarious way. Lots of good stuff online. But you know, critical thinking and kind of the new next idea that doesn't exist yet, it can't find that, right? So I think there's a little bit of a fear that if we maybe you could optimize, right? If you want something, off the shelf, or you know your needs and you just want it done.
Yeah.
But as architects, right? Like we're dreamers. We're 50% starving artists.
Yeah.
And we really want that, that process of design and iteration and unconventional thinking that leads to new ideas. And I think we could get over dependent on that. At least that's the big fear, right? Of like this thing coming in and it starts the design and you're like,
Sure.
oh, but it did this because it's been looking into all these other things. And, what we want is the thing that's not been, not out there yet.
Well, I think, I would kind of compare that. I don't know if you're familiar with Midjourney or any of the text to art AI applications.
No.
So you basically type in what you want a picture of, and you will be amazed at how insane this is, because you can select the style, surrealism, photographic, whatever you want, and it is insane how close it gets. But what you're saying is it doesn't have like the original new concept. So artists have been upset about these programs, but my argument would be kind of if you're an architect that's designing Chick-fil-A's, this program might help you a lot, and it might help simplify some things. So if you're an artist that just makes logos for companies, you might want to use the AI to just pump them out. But if you're trying to make a one-of-a-kind building, AI is not there yet.
Well, and again, not that everything, everything's been done, right? Nothing's new. I think there's definitely some kind of true cliches out there that, it's not that every idea that we put out or build or present is brand new. But I think the idea that we've got an opportunity to innovate and find that thing that makes it unique and really kind of puts the spirit behind the building. I would say we don't want to give up that artistic license, right? So I can empathize and sympathize with the artists that are like, hey, that's my stuff.
Sure. Yeah. I won't pound on that drum anymore, but I'm sure you're familiar with the artist Drake.
Yep.
Someone made an AI song using his voice, and AI created the lyrics, and the song made it like on like the top 100 charts until people realized it wasn't actually him. So artists are gonna have to do a lot to be unique. Speaking of unique, maybe you can share one or two super unique projects that you worked on with a unique facade.
Yeah, I'd say for starters, that first one that really got me into facades. So, the PNC tower has a breathable double skin. So 42% of the time, these popper windows pop out, let in fresh air. And it's just beautiful. There's, on the west facade, there's these double height spaces that climb it. And then at the very top, there's a 6-story like outdoor porch in the sky. With a 6-story cable net wall on one side that, takes all the wind pressures. And that, that was just, again, a very formative and kind of, game changer for me as far as not just an opportunity to work on it, because at the time I had no idea that this was such an amazing project to be a part of, but also to like change the trajectory of and really kind of spark my passion. So that was one. And, I'd say another one that we're just finishing construction here up in Boston is a reclad. It's called One Post Office Square, and it is a old 1970s precast building. I don't know, 30 plus story tower. and it was, losing tenants and ugly and just needed a refresh. And we were able to reclad it. So rip off the precast, put brand new triple glazed facade. And actually it's, behind the scenes, it's a little more complicated. Not only did we rip off the precast, but the middle top 1/3, but not quite the top, is an overclad. So there's both a reclad where we ripped off the precast and an overclad in plane with each other, seamlessly. You can't tell from the outside. And so that was very technically complicated and like fun to dig into, but then also like a game changer for the city. It's right on this park, and you look now and it's like one of the most beautiful buildings on the skyline. And it used to be this like just, real eyesore. And maybe the funny thing about that is that construction started right about COVID when that hit, like, March 2020. So the city shut down. And as people got back into the city a couple of years later, like this new tower was there, right? It was like this old, this old precast thing. Now it's like this new glass tower. It's like, oh, where did that come from? Kind of a total shocker.
Yeah.
But that project's pretty great.
I'm a big fan of the renovations, especially when you're improving not only aesthetics, but performance.
Mm-hmm.
So very cool. Hey, Daniel, is there anything else you'd like to share? Any comments to the glazing industry out there?
I think I guess I'll share one personally. Working with the glazers and our fabricators and during design assist is my favorite phase of a project, because it's really when our ideas get turned into reality. So I think it's mostly, thank you for that partnership, because again, I'm learning, and every time I learn something new, and I just love like when all these different perspectives come together to create the real thing, right? The first time you see that like first panel go up, it's like, wow, how did this happen? It's like every time I walk a factory, I get goosebumps looking at this. I'm like, how did they figure out how to build this? Like we just draw, it's like a rectangle, it's glass, right? And it's like comes to fruition. So I think just, continue to be patient with us and partner with us. And, we're all going through VE exercises, and, the ideas that, that the trades bring to the table are the ones that move the needle, right? Because they know what's behind the scenes and how it gets built and what's expensive and how they can do it better. And so it's just, for me, it's just a thank you. It's been fun, like I really enjoy it.
Well, that's awesome. I love that, because we need you guys too. We need the architects. I'm sure there's a couple people listening. They're going to tell me that we don't, but they're wrong. That's not true. We need you guys too. And I think you're going to be the glazing community's favorite architect after those comments. So Daniel, hey, congratulations to you. Congratulations to Gensler. Keep making huge buildings with glass facades, no matter what the code does.
Sounds good.
We'll keep making products that work for you. We'll figure it out. Thanks for your time, man. You have a great night.
All right. Appreciate it. You too.